So, my vice, I hate to admit, is some good retaliation. I think of myself as a very kind and forgiving person, but there comes a point where, I'll do the retaliation and maybe talk about forgiveness afterwards. So I'm going to tell you about a story of one of my first or my best and earliest retaliations. Now, the key to a good retaliation, by the way, is you don't tell anybody. You do it alone. You don't tell your best friend. You don't tell your sisters. You don't tell anybody. And so I'm going to tell this story, and the person who I did the retaliation against, if he ever hears the story, will know it for the first time. So I'm outing myself. So I grew up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island in the 1970s. I was a teenager, and I had 5 older sisters who were beautiful, long blonde hair. I never had long blonde hair, but and so we had all these boyfriends around the house all the time. And my sister Patty, who was a few years older than me, had like the captain of the basketball team, really tall, good-looking, smart guy. And I was kind of a tomboy. I was going through a phase where I didn't like to take showers, and I was mouthy. And we didn't get along so well. I thought he was arrogant. He ate all the food in our refrigerator, and all the cereal, and he just came over and made himself at home. And one day I let him have it. I'd heard my father complaining about how he ate all the food in the house, and so I thought I would tell him, we don't appreciate you eating all the food in the house. And we've got a big family here, and you shouldn't be eating all the food. And he goes, you know what, you're just an ugly wench. And nobody likes you anyway. And it was humiliated. So I plotted my revenge. Now, he had a fancy-ish kind of car, because he worked at the grocery store and made money at this union, but it was a good union job. So, and he thought his car was so precious that he would drive it now in our driveway and then into our backyard. For some reason, he thought someone would try to mess with his car and his prized 8-track tape player, which he had put in his car. He was very proud of that. And so I snuck out in the backyard, waited a few days after this, because you don't do a retaliation right away, because then they'll kind of put it together. So I waited a few days, and I went into the car, and he had, about 28 tracks of the best music at the time, and I had a little pair of scissors. So I clipped each tape on each 8-track, and I rolled the tape so you couldn't tell it was broken. And I did this to every single one of his 8 tracks. And then I left it exactly as I found it and left. Well, a couple of days came by, and I heard David, his name was David Leggett, and I heard David complaining about his 8-track, how he had just bought this very expensive 8-track player, and it was breaking all of his 8 tracks. Every single one, it ate up. They put it in there, and the tape would get all garbled up. So he went out and bought another very expensive 8-track tape player. It was very satisfying. I was so proud of myself. I went years without telling anyone. I finally told my sister Patty, they had broken up, and they didn't. And I told her last year, and that was. She goes, that was you? You did that? And I was so proud of myself. Now, I am friends with David Leggett on Facebook, and I have to say, we've forgiven each, well, he doesn't know I've done it until right now. But he's a nice guy, and he's not a jerk like he was in high school, and I think I've probably grown too. But anyway, if you're, that's the end of my story, and. And David, if you watch us on Facebook, because my husband will copy it and put it, you're a really nice guy, and I'm sorry I messed up your 8 tracks. Bye.